It's time for Voice of Indie. Your hosts today are Beem Weeks, author, producer, and marketing monster for independent multimedia publisher Fresh Ink Group, and Stephen Gies, author, producer, composer, and publisher for Fresh Ink Group.
And welcome to another episode of the Voice of Indie podcast. I am your host tonight, Beem Weeks, and with me as usual is my co-host, Stephen Gies. How you doing, Stephen?
I'm doing great. Down here in Alabama, the weather's been nice, and we're looking forward to a couple of weeks of cold weather before it starts breaking and we start heading toward our springtime way quicker than you people up there in Michigan.
Yeah.
But
and your cold isn't the same as the cold up here.
Not even close. And I have adjusted now. I have definitely adjusted. Although I still drive around with a down coat in the trunk of the car that says he's from Michigan. He knows that if you ever break down, you got to have that down coat in the trunk. So listeners, we're over monitoring on Twitter, hashtag Fresh Ink Group. If you want to make a comment about today's show or any of our shows or ask a question of today's guest, go over to Twitter and write a tweet, but make sure hashtag Fresh Ink Group is in the tweet, in the body of the tweet, anywhere in there, and we will see it, and we'll be able to read your tweet right here on the air. You'll be famous, and all your friends will be impressed.
Or if you really want to be famous and you want to ask a question or have a comment for tonight's guest and want to call in and be on the air, you can do that at 516-453-9902. Once again, that number is 516-453-9902, and we will get you on the air.
Now, next in our notes here, we've got to talk about, very briefly, a couple of the projects we're working on, but I want to interrupt that real quickly with something I just remembered, and that's that last week we interviewed Yasmin Correa.
No, that was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago?
Last week was Louise.
Louise Cruz. So 2 weeks ago, she talked about her upcoming book, Reversal. It is coming out tomorrow. So head on over to your favorite retailer, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you like, and make sure you get on Reversal by Yasmin Correa, or I think Y Correa is the way it appears on the cover there. And before we get into current projects, Beem, why don't you tell us about Concord and Vibrancy?
Concord and Vibrancy is an anthology. It is a collection of short stories by 8 authors. There are 8 stories in all. This is the 5th and final edition. I have a story in there. I've been part of the last 4. I wasn't part of the first one, but I've been part of the last 4. And these are some incredibly talented writers, and I'm not talking about myself. Put myself aside. But the other writers are just incredibly talented. They're wonderful imaginations, and this is also available. Concord and Vibrancy number 5 is available on Amazon, and so go over there and grab a copy.
I highly recommend it, and even though the first edition doesn't have Beem in it, it's still a good one. We still
a good
recommend
one.
it.
Exactly. Oh, and let me also add this here for Yasmin's new book. Tonight at midnight, it goes live on my my blog, beemweeks.wordpress.com. There's a little write-up about it, and you can follow the links, and it'll take you right to where you need to go to buy it. So go check it out.
And so we're not overlapping each other. The day after, I will have a thing on my blog as well at stephengies.com. So we're trying to get the word out there, help us spread the word about Yasmin's new book. We're working on a couple of other books right now that are interesting. Actually, we're working on almost 20. But 2 that I want to mention is for Barbara Johnson, a new author, a new member of Fresh Ink Group. We're working on a children's illustrated book called Sassy Discovers the AME Church. And this is about the African Methodist Episcopal Church and a young girl learning about her heritage and her religion, and also learning about some of the prominent events, especially the I guess, assassination. I don't know what you'd call a slaughter, where somebody went into the church down there in South Carolina and killed 9 members after praying with them for an hour. So here's a chance for a little girl to learn about that, too. Another one that we're excited about is for J. Ash Looney. We're working on 2 books. I'll mention one of them. This one's called Whoopi Likes Her Bacon Crispy. And it's 62 prominent women, from Whoopi Goldberg to Madeleine Albright, Tina Fey, entertainment, politics, all across the gamut, but influential and prominent women. And it's got quotes from them. And I don't mean a line or two. I mean like a page. Some really good stuff, some deep stuff that has really been curated. And then we have a professional caricature artist doing 62 caricatures of each of those women. So we'll be putting this book out in color with color caricatures on the page opposite the quotes. And that's a lot of work, but we're excited about that as well.
Yeah.
Beem, what else are we working on?
We are also working on audiobooks. We've got audiobooks. We're doing another Robert G. Willis-Croft audiobook. This one is going to be as cool as the other ones. The sound effects, the music, it just adds to the drama. So this is the Mac McDowell series. This is Operation Icebreaker. And we hopefully will have this done and ready to go here within the next, who knows, week or 2 maybe. But these are a lot of fun to put together, these audiobooks, because they're not like the typical audiobook. It's not just a voiceover or the author reading the story. There's that, but then there's all of the sound effects. So it almost puts you in the submarines during these incredible missions. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, we've been spending a lot of time in that submarine. We've had to learn the difference between creaking, groaning, shuddering, and all the different sounds that submarines make. And when they sound the klaxon, it's got to be the correct klaxon if it's diving or going up or down or whatever. But it's been a lot of fun. We also, we've been talking about getting going on another video book trailer sometime in the next week or 2 for a book called Princess Lil, which is by a author named Nelle Cooper, who just happens to be our guest today, and she's waiting on the phone to talk to us right now.
Yeah, so before we introduce her, I will tell you a little bit about her. Inspired by her grandchildren and other loved ones, school children she cared for, her own childhood experiences, and Job 12:7, Nelle Cooper wrote Princess Lil for children coping with mean peers as they learn to be kind and loyal friends. A registered nurse who's been writing short stories all her life, she shares a restored Centennial farmhouse in rural Michigan, yay, my home state, with her husband Ed and King Charles Cavalier Spaniel dog Tori. Find Nelle Cooper on Facebook and under the members tab at freshinggroup.com. And with that, welcome to the show, Nelle. It is great to have you here.
Thank you.
So how you doing, Nelle?
Well, I'm doing fine. We have lots of snow up here, but it's very pretty. It's been a beautiful day.
I don't miss the cold, but I do like the pictures anyway.
It's nice when you can be inside.
Yeah, exactly. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your blended family, which is ranging from newborns to college age and beyond?
Oh, it's quite an interesting collection of family. Yes, we do. We got 2 new babies arrived in December, great-grandbabies.
Ooh.
So that takes us up to 11 great-grandbabies. And our families range from that age all the way up to 58, so age 58. So we have all age ranges, and they teach us. Each generation is teaching us. So much to learn.
Now, as I mentioned in your author blurb, you're a nurse, but you're also a writer, which is why you're here on the show. What's your education background like?
Well, I have written all my life. My mother had rheumatoid arthritis, and she was quite disabled when I was very young. It was very difficult for her to do things, but she did them anyway. And so she didn't feel well a lot. So I spent a lot of time kind of by myself and kind of writing. And so I grew up doing that and using that as an expression. And I went on to high school. I wanted to be a nurse, but I wasn't accepted into any of the nursing schools that I applied to for LPN. And I was really crushed. And it wasn't until 10 years later that I found out when I applied at college that the reason I hadn't been accepted was that the government had set up programs for LPNs, and if you tested over a certain score, you couldn't get in. They were trying to work the automotive workers into another profession because there was problems in the automotive industry for jobs. So they were trying to incorporate them into the LPN programs. So 10 years later, I found out that I had actually tested too high in all 3 of the class schools that I'd applied to. But all that time, I thought I wasn't good enough. So it was an interesting journey.
That's so crazy to say you tested too high.
Yeah, but nobody tells you that. Nobody told me that. You just did not meet our requirements, and that was interesting. So at the age of 26, when my youngest child started school, I went back to college and got my associate in nursing in Flint, and then worked at St. Joe's in Pontiac for 20 years.
Okay.
So then I decided I wanted to go back to school, and I went over to U of M in Flint and applied, not even knowing. I was thinking I was going to have to go for 4 full years to get a bachelor's. And I went in, and they had a 2-month window where they were accepting all the students from my community college program and taking all 62 credit hours. After 17 years. After 17 years, they accepted all my credit hours. It was an amazing, amazing thing.
Yeah,
so
University
in the first
is kind of known for saying, okay, where'd you get your credits? Were they at Michigan?
Mm-hmm.
If not, there were.
Mm-hmm. Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
Well, I was able to complete it anyway, so that was nice. I was very grateful. But I just thought that was an amazing thing because I had friends going to college that they wouldn't take any of the credits, and it was an interesting experience.
So what is the
degree? I have a bachelor's in nursing. Mm-hmm.
Bachelor's in nursing. Cool. And you found a good way to use that, didn't you?
I did. I had a lot of nice experiences with that. I worked in many different areas of nursing: cardiology, emergency room, recovery room. Most of my time was spent in psychiatric nursing, mental health, and substance abuse. Some child adolescent, and then I went in and worked in public health for a few years.
So out of all of those, what your favorite? Because you had such a wide experience there in these different areas. Which was your favorite to work in?
They all have their merit. Each experience. So when I was in public health, I had public schools, I had parochial schools. I worked with children for the first time. Well, I had worked with children just a little bit in psychiatric nursing. But
so you were like the school nurse?
Yeah. Well, they didn't actually have school nurses. We visited the schools and we did resource kind of work for them.
I remember when I was in elementary school, early elementary, we had a school nurse and she was there all the time. That's one of those memories I have. That's early 70s.
That would be nice if the schools had a full-time nurse. That would be nice. And then I did 14 years of parish nursing, and that was interesting in the church, doing nursing in the church, like a public health nurse in the parish or the church. So that was fun. That was a lot of fun. And out of that, we ended up developing a community garden project at my church. So that's going on, I think, 10 years now that we've had that community garden project.
Nice. So is that the end of your education, or are you still thinking about some more?
Oh, I'd go back in a heartbeat. I probably would. I would probably like to do some online courses if I can if I can get technically savvy, I would like to do that.
Okay. Now, you mentioned working in the church as a nurse and then with the community garden. You've also embarked on a faith journey. So have I. And believe me when I say there's some mornings these days, that's the only thing that pulls me out of bed. When did this begin for you?
Well, I probably with my mom, probably praying for my mom's health as a child, and seeing her struggle through the day. That really had an impact on me. And I have a lot of empathy for people who experience pain, emotional pain, physical pain. I'm quite sensitive to that. And that's where I went into writing Princess Lil. It bothered me to see children subjected to situations that they didn't have the emotional skills to handle, and to feel like they were in those situations all alone and that nobody cared. And I really was trying to, through the book, I was really hoping to open dialogue between children and adults so children would feel that they had someone they could talk to when they got into a situation that they didn't know how to handle.
Okay, we're going to talk a lot about Princess Lil in the second half of the show, and we got a bunch of questions about that for you. Are there other kinds of volunteer work that you're doing having to do with your faith or experiences that you've had or with the church? That
I went through Stephen ministry training, and I did. My husband and I did divorce care at our church for several years. I've also done divorce care for children. I've done grief share for many years. And out of the Stephen ministry, my husband and I went into working with people on parole. And that was a good fit because it was basically about listening skills and helping people acclimate back into the community setting after being incarcerated. So wow, that's the passion that we have.
Yeah, that's important work. We're going to ask you a little bit more about that in a minute here. We've got to take a quick break and run a commercial. This is about the ABCs of Surviving Cancer by Fresh Ink Group member Tammy Trover, who is a cancer survivor herself, and she wanted to put out something that children can use, not just for understanding their own cancer fight, but for that kid in class who's coming in and you don't understand what he or she's going through or maybe losing some hair or whatever, so that all children can understand this battle.
Cornelius is our cancer fighter. He's here to make our days much brighter. It's his job to help you know you're never alone wherever you go. Cornelius will guide and show you too. So let's fight the fire of cancer in you. A is for alive, that's what I am. This is my story and how it began. When cancer came in and changed my days, changed my thoughts and changed my ways. Hi everybody, my name is Tammy. And like so many of you around the world, I too am a cancer survivor. I wrote the ABCs of Surviving Cancer, alive, beautiful, and courageous, for people of all ages. My book is fun, informative, and most of all, heartfelt. It's a way to give confidence to young people, as well as families and friends, to educate those who know a young person facing the challenge of cancer, and to bring everybody together with empathy and understanding. This book is beautifully illustrated. The ABCs of Surviving Cancer guides us through the alphabet with a 16-line poem for every letter. Some of the topics include C is for courageous, H for hope, J for joy, O for own it, P for patience, T for truth, V for victory, and Y for you. Join me in this journey of reassurance and understanding, and share it with the people you love. The ABCs of Surviving Cancer is available in hardcover, softcover, and popular ebook editions such as iBooks, Kindle, and Nook. Order yours through every major bookseller worldwide or through my website, TammyTrober.com. The ABCs of Surviving Cancer is proudly published by the Fresh Ink Group.
All right. Yeah, go out
That
and
was
grab
a
yourself
fun book to work on.
Yeah, go out and grab yourself a copy. We are currently chatting with author Nelle Cooper, and if you listen, people, if you want to get on here, make that phone call. 516-453-9902. 516.
You don't call, you don't write.
453-9902. And also get on Twitter, and we do have a comment on Twitter, hashtag Fresh Ink Group, and we'll see that tweet. We do have a tweet from another fellow Michigander. This is Verwayne Greenhoe. He is way up into UP. He's a Uper, and he just wanted to chime in and say, we got snow up here last night, and up there in the UP, and he posted a photograph of the snow, and it's just a beautiful photograph. If you like beautiful snowy scenes, go stop over there under hashtag Fresh Ink Group and take a look at what Verwayne has shared with us. And thanks for sharing that, Verwayne, and thanks for being in the audience as usual.
So, Jude, Nell, you said something about a grief program or something before you mentioned the parolees. I was real interested in that, too. What is that?
It's a grief share program. It's put out by the same people that put out divorce care, and it's for helping people through grief.
Is it like a support group?
It's like a 12-week program with a video and discussion, and it lasts 12 weeks. And the group forms, and they help each other. And sometimes people go through it once or twice because each time they're at a different place in their grieving. So it's not specific to losing a spouse. It can be losing a child, having any family member pass, a good friend, and getting through the grieving process with some support.
Ah, that sounds terrific. And then your volunteer work with parolees, that sounds like definitely doing God's work. What got you interested in working with parolees?
Well, it was through the Stephen Ministry. When some of the people that had a program organized to try to help people coming back into society, getting housing, getting food, getting resources, adjusting to the way everything has changed over the time that they've been incarcerated. It's really traumatic for them coming out. And so to have someone that they can call, someone they can have a cup of coffee with, just talk with, is really helpful. And that's what the Stephen Ministry training is about listening skills. So that kind of linked up with a program that had started over to Port Huron, and they came across to 69 and started recruiting some Stephen ministers to work in the program. And now there's a group called Reconnections in Flint, and we work through them or are affiliated with them.
Okay.
So what are some examples? I mean, are you working with individual people, or what's it look like when you're involved?
Well, they have to be receptive to having a mentor, and so
you have one at a time.
We usually have just one at a time,
Okay.
and friendship builds, and I have some that I've had friendships with for several years as a result of mentoring through this process. So, and they too, like my grandchildren, they teach me. They teach me how to help them.
Have you had some successes that you were especially proud of, or some accomplishments on their part?
Anytime they feel encouraged, the recidivism rate that we have for people on parole that have mentors is, what is it? 4%. About 4%. It's tremendously successful when they have a mentor to help them find work and all of the housing, and even a church. There's churches that don't allow people on parole to come, And
wow, really?
Yes.
Wow,
that's horrible.
There are restrictions. For some of them, and so. Oh, the state is about 50% recidivism, but we have a much, much lower rate in our group activities when we have mentoring.
Yeah, I can imagine that if the parolee has some kind of connection in the outside world, that they're gonna have a better chance for success rather than they're just turned loose and left to their own devices.
Yes, and when one person from a church steps up and starts helping someone on parole, you can put a notice up on the bulletin board and say, I need a bed, I need a bicycle, I need a whatever, and put your name and phone number on it. And the congregation is really willing to help once they know how they can help. So it's not just accessing one person in a mentor. When you access a mentor, you access a lot more support.
Yeah, that's right there is the true definition of community. Especially in a Christian community, I just can't see. Well, you're a parolee, so we don't want you in our church. I mean, that to me is just goes against everything that Jesus taught.
Seems like that's who they would want.
Yeah, exactly, and that's who Jesus.
Certain offenses they restrict. So
yeah, all right.
Yeah.
It sounded like you referred to your husband Ed there in the background for a minute. Was he involved in that program?
Yes, he is very active in that program.
Well, tell Ed we said hello.
I will. He's sitting right here. Thank you.
We kind of skipped over him in the early part of the interview here. Could you take a minute and tell us about him? How long you've been together, and how handsome he is?
Oh, he's very handsome. We've been together 26 years. And he's been working with people on parole for about 10 years. And his hobby is restoring bicycles. And he restores them and takes them over and donates them to Catholic charities. So we have a barn full of bicycles in parks.
A barn full of bicycles.
But he really enjoys it.
All right. We do have a phone call. You up for taking a caller?
Sure.
All right. Hello, caller. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm Tom. I'm calling from Lapeer, Michigan.
Hi, Tom. Welcome to the show. Do you have a question or a comment for Nelle Cooper?
I just want to say before I start, when I was younger, Nelle Cooper worked as a mentor for me when I was just learning to just write stories. And she's been a huge inspiration in my life, and it's something I'm actually going into now is writing.
All right.
So I just want to say thank you for that.
Welcome to the club.
Oh, thank you, Tom.
Maybe she can help you find a publisher.
Maybe,
So what kind of writing do you do, Tom? What kind of stuff do you write?
I'm working on writing for video games, actually, doing the storyboarding for those.
Ooh.
That sounds interesting.
And potentially lucrative,
a lot of
too.
Fun. I get to watch people play the stories I write.
So how long have you known Nelle?
Oh, since I was very young. I'm 19 now, so about 17 years.
Wow. That's a long time.
Yeah, that goes back to even before I knew how to write. So what can you tell us about Tom, Nelle? Is this guy got a future in writing?
Oh, yes. He's got a lot of opportunities. He's a very talented young man. I'm excited to just watch his career bloom.
Yeah, it's always a great way to hear from a protege.
Yeah, Tom, do you have a question or a comment?
With my writing, one of the things that I have to do a lot of is character development through interacting with other characters. So where do you start with the character development if you have to build off of each other? Build two characters off of each other.
Well, that's interesting, Tom, because one of the things that I that's really helped me is all the, if I can say this politely, all the characters I've met in my nursing career bring different aspects of personality into my characters that I write. And there's none specific, it's just a collection of characteristics. But once I give a character a name, then I can kind of form a development of what are their mannerisms, what do they look like, that kind of thing. And I develop it. But what's interesting is once you start writing, your characters take on their own role, and sometimes they manipulate the story in spite of you.
Yes, they do.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, they do. Now, Tom, I made a video, an animated, illustrated video on how to develop characters. It's about 20 minutes long. And if you want to send me a note using the contact form at freshinkgroup.com, I'll see if I can dig that video up for you.
All right. That'd be awesome. I'd really appreciate that.
And the way Stephen G teaches, it's you'll pick this stuff up and it's you'll be off and running.
Okay, yeah.
How kind. So yeah, you definitely are providing an excellent endorsement for Nelle Cooper here. It's always nice to hear from a protege, years after the fact, and know that things are going well. And I think we're all proud of you, Tom, and we look forward to seeing great things from you. And we can tell just hear it in Nelle's voice how proud she is.
Oh.
Okay,
right.
well, thanks for calling in, Tom. We appreciate that.
Thanks for having me.
Okay,
we're about due for another commercial here, so let's remind our listeners we're talking to author Nelle Cooper today. If you want to post a comment or ask her a question, go over to Twitter and use hashtag FreshInkGroup, or you're always welcome to call in. What's that phone number, Beem?
That phone number is 516-453-9902, and we do have another caller waiting. So
okay, right after this commercial, we'll grab the caller. The commercial will be for Gracie Bradford's book, Lady Bird, which is part of a series that she wrote for children. You notice we got a theme going today. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sean, and I'm 10. Lady Bird is my beagle. Right from the start, I knew she had special powers, and that we could share secrets. I was the coolest kid at school before the accident hurt my ability to see. Then, I became a kid with special needs. I was not always close friends with the kids I started calling feel, hear, touch, and taste. I mean, we would play sometimes, but then I needed help learning a new way of life that takes friendship and trust. Lady Bird helps a lot, especially since she has special needs too. Lady Bird understands how each of us has our own challenges to rise above. I would really like to tell you about Lady Bird and what she does for my friends and me. Our story is in the book, Lady Bird, Sean's Sixth Sense, by Gracie Bradford. Gracie is a really cool grandma who writes these I Am stories about kids finding new ways to be their best. You should check out Gracie Bradford's books. A great one to start with is the one with me and the world's coolest dog, Lady Bird, Sean's Sixth Sense.
All right. So let's go ahead and take this other call here and find out who this is. Hello, caller. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Barbara Johnson, and I'm calling from Huntsville, Alabama.
Hi, Barbara. I think we talked about your book a minute ago.
Yes, you did. I was so surprised. Thank you for mentioning me.
Yeah.
So do you have a question or a comment for Nelle Cooper?
I sure do. I've just finished my first children's book, and Stephen knows all about that. We've been working on it together. But I've just finished it, and it's the first children's book that I've attempted to write. I think it's great. I really do. But that'll be left up to the public, sure enough. But I do have a question for Mrs. Cooper, since she is a Christian children's writer, And I'm a Christian children's writer as well, so I have a question. And my first question is, who is your target audience? What age group do you typically write for?
Oh, thank you for asking. This particular book I targeted for 8-year-old and 8 to 12 because when I surveyed the bookstores, the only thing available on this particular topic was for high school. And there were a lot of books, but there was nothing for the 8-year-old when that starts, when girls start getting little clicks going and picking on other children. And so I wanted to start when it starts, early. How could we stop this from getting to high school? So that's why I made that my target audience.
That sounds like a good age group to start with. I've been an educator as well and been in the school system, so I know that can be a big problem, even with kids younger than 8. But I think at 8, they're starting to read so they can actually inform themselves as to what they need to do to remedy the situation, become a better friend.
That's what it's all about.
And I found out that some of the children likely to be picked on or bullied were children that had special needs, and one of those needs would be dyslexia. So I proceeded to get an audio version of the book so that children with dyslexia could listen to the book and follow along with a written book. And
that's great.
That's why I did the audio.
That would really make a difference in their lives.
So what is your target age, Barbara, with the Sassy book?
My target age is between 9 and 12.
So almost identical.
Almost. Yes, pretty close.
And your experience as an educator, that was early elementary, right?
Yes, it was.
Then you know how to hear the cadence in the voices.
Oh, Barbara, you're making me want to go to a writers' conference so much, and I'm missing all my writers' conferences with this COVID. It would be fun to meet you. It would be fun to meet you, Barbara.
Same here. Yes, that would be fun to meet each other. I have one additional question. You mentioned that the bullying was one of the topics that you write about. Are there other topics that you cover in your book besides bullying?
Not in Princess Lil. Well, friendship, mainly. That people who have been mistreated they mistreat. So kindness can go a long way in understanding each other. So I try to reach that through animals, through the horses in the story, that kindness changes behaviors.
Okay. And since you are a Christian children's book writer, do you influence your writing from Scripture? Do you use Scripture to influence your writing? Or do you pretty much keep your storylines on the outskirts of church?
No, I use Scripture. I open Princess Lil with Scripture that the animals will teach us from Scripture. So and in the back of the book, I use biblical situations where bullying took place. So kids get the idea. Children get the idea. This is not something new. This has gone on since time began. People are people. So I reference David and Goliath, Joseph and his brothers, Sarah and Hagar, Cain and Abel. I just list them and ask the parents to look those stories up in the Bible and discuss them with their children.
Oh, that's easy.
Okay. That sounds great. So do you have a pretty big audience for your books?
Well, marketing is totally independent now. So when I can get into schools, I'm able to go into schools. Some of the schools would have me back every year, but, of course, everything has changed now. So I used to go out to the schools and speak, but I haven't for a couple of years.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for taking my question. And
you're welcome.
Maybe one day we'll meet at a conference.
Well, I hope we can. Maybe we can exchange email addresses and get in touch with each other.
And maybe
That
Nelle
sounds
Cooper.
like a great idea.
And maybe Nelle Cooper will call in when Barbara Johnson's being interviewed, because Sassy Discovers the AME Church is coming out soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll
and I'd
do
love
that.
to Zoom. I love Zooming. That's the only kind of communication I'm doing right now is either Zoom or Skype. So I'm available for those as well. So maybe we can hook up at a later date.
Okay. Sounds fine, Barbara.
Yep.
Thank you for calling
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Barbara.
Thanks,
Okay.
Take care.
We've done a segue into the book Princess Lil. So
Hold on, let me cut in here a second for a minute, Stephen. Going back to the previous caller who spoke about character development and how characters can often, like Nelle Cooper said, characters can often manipulate the story and whatnot. Robert G. Williscroft has put out a tweet here, sent us a tweet discussing that very thing, touching on it. He said, in my latest book, going through editing right now, an orca who was supposed to be incidental turned out to be a significant character. So there you go, even an orca, an orca whale.
That means lots of orca sound effects when we do the audio book.
We've got them. Rack them up.
We've got them. We got a whole file folder full of orcas. Yeah, what I started to say was the book Princess Lil. It's a chapter book with each chapter starting with a photo, and it's I don't remember 11 or 12 chapters, something like that. So it's right about perfect for 8 to 12-year-old girls, especially. And I'm going to read the book blurb real quick so people know what we're talking about. Princess Lil is a sad pony. Her little girl grew up and went away. Now Lil is in a scary place with a lot of mean ponies. A fun, furry farm cat called Taffy and a nice roan horse named Pearly try to help. It even looks like Princess Lil might have a chance to cheer up special needs children, too, but she is already too hurt and too sick. Princess Lil is about the differences between loyal friends and those who bully others. It shows the power of caring about ourselves and the people who look out for us. Is it too late for a sad pony in a scary place? The answer just might depend on how much we all love Princess Lil. I like this book. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I don't read that many 8 to 12-year-old books, but this was a good story. It was. It was a good story with a lot of heart.
Yeah, I read it some years ago, and it's one that I still remember parts of it.
And I remember, this was one of the first books we published after Fresh Ink Group turned into a publisher. And I remember talking back then, Nell, you were hearing about suicides and getting frustrated, and you went to a bookstore looking for something. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. I was. There were 3 suicides of 12-year-old boys within 20 miles of my home.
Oh.
And I was just so sad to think this happened, and I just, at the same time, there were some incidents with some children that I knew, and I thought there has to be a way to help children that feel like they can't talk to people. And so I went out to look and see if there were books out there for children to read. I grew up reading Gene Stratton Porter. That's a long time ago, Keeper of the Bees and the Harvester and all that. And I loved good stories. And I spent a lot of time reading as a child. And I thought maybe we could reach them through books. And I went to a bookstore, and I was asking God for confirmation. Is this because I had always written stories? I didn't intend to write children's books. That was not my intent. But I went to the bookstore and was seeking if they had anything like that. And I asked the clerk, and I told her why I was asking, and she turned to me and she started to cry. And she said, I was chased all the way home from school for so many times. My kids just wanting to pull my hair or be mean, bullied just horribly through school. And I left that store thinking, oh, my goodness. She was probably 25.
Ooh.
And I thought, yeah, we need to address this topic. We need to talk about it.
Yeah, and that's a topic that in the years since you did that has not only not gone away, but in many ways has gotten worse, right?
It has gotten worse because of social, what's the word I want?
Media?
Media, yes, because people get traumatized multiple times because it comes up on social media. People feel that they have a right to publish other people's events or business. And things that 40 years ago would not have been published show up on social media. And so people get traumatized again and again. And, yes, it's sad.
Yes, I think social media, was a door that was open for cowards because they can get on there and anonymously, post things and troll people.
Destroy people.
And some people, that's what it does. I mean, some people, it really strikes to their core, and it and it seems like some of these people are just evil, that they really get some kind of sick pleasure out of that. But that's
and even if a child
now
has to change schools for a situation, if they have to change schools or something, at least the dialogue has been opened with them. They don't feel so alone if they can talk to somebody about what's happening. So that was my goal in writing the book.
Now, when you first got this, your first drafts of it done, you were running it by some people for feedback, and one bit of feedback in particular I thought was particularly interesting about talking animals.
Oh yeah. Yes, I took it to one person who works with children's literature, and that's her career. And I asked her if she would read it, and she said, "Oh, certainly." And she took it, and when I went to pick it up, she just flipped it back to me, and she said, "Children know that animals don't talk." She was so disgusted, and I was just shattered until I got halfway home, and I realized all the money that Walt Disney had made. And I just started laughing. I was laughing and crying at the same time as I was driving home, thinking, that's got to be ridiculous. Mickey Mouse talked,
Yeah, even stories like George Orwell's Animal Farm, that was for adults with animals that talk. Yeah. So, I mean, how crazy must you be, huh?
Dr. Doolittle.
Right. So you can't let one person's comments discourage you. And if one person would discourage you, then you're not a writer. Because you will write, because you have to write. You can't not write.
Yeah. One quote of yours that I've always liked that I noted here in my notes is, if one child turns to one adult and says, "Please help me through this time," that makes it all worthwhile, right?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
So we've got one last commercial we're going to slot, and then we're going to round out this hour talking to Nelle Cooper. We're still encouraging people to go over to Twitter and use #FreshInkGroup or call in to 516-453-9902. Now, this commercial is for a story called Daisy Bold and Beautiful, written by Fresh Ink Group member Ellie Collins. She wrote it when she was 11 years old. We published it right after she turned 12 years old. And the commercial you're about to hear, she made herself. She wrote it, she narrated it, and she even did the animation that's in the video part of it. So go over to the Fresh Ink Group channel and look for that video. But right now you're going to hear the audio part of it with Ellie reading her own script.
Hi, I'm DJ. My dad and I just moved to Kirkland, Washington. It's different here than my old home. I'm still getting used to it. I'm totally freaked out about starting at my new middle school. I'm super nervous about making new friends, but score! I make 3 fast new besties. Life is awesome. Except for one itsy bitsy little wrinkle. All 3 of my friends are serious hardcore gamers, like they live for video games. And me, I don't even own an Xbox. I'm such a dork. I'd much rather be out in my garden growing beautiful plants and flowers. But there's no way I could tell my friends that, right? They'd leave me and I'd be all alone again. Do I just keep my mouth shut and try to like video games, or do I take a chance of losing my new friends? And who is this amazingly beautiful person named Persephone? Can she help me? A crazy kid named Ellie wrote down my story. Then a man named Stephen G's and the rest of the supportive team at Fresh Ink Group helped to make Ellie and her book all legit and professional. No? Yeah. And look how beautiful Persephone is on the cover. Read it to find out what I decide to do, how I decide to do it, and what super complicated high-five handshake thingy I learn along the way. Happy reading!
Okay, so like Stephen said, go over to the Fresh Ink Group channel on YouTube. Just go to YouTube, type in Fresh Ink Group, and check out that video that Ellie put together. Talented girl, talented writer. She doesn't write like a typical 11-year-old. She's got a great command of story and how to move it forward. Good character development as well.
The audio.
Now, I think Stephen just dropped off. We'll get him back here in a second. Now you've made an audio book of Princess Lil. How did this come about, and how was it made?
Well, first, before I don't have time, I want to say thank you to both of you for how you helped me develop this book. There were things in it that I needed to smooth and add, and I guess they say massage or write or develop, and you helped me tremendously. And I just want to say thank you very much. I went to our local Christian radio station, which is WMPC in Lapeer, which is the oldest Christian broadcasting station, continuous Christian broadcasting station in the nation. And I went to them and asked them if they would record me reading my book. And they agreed to do it for a donation. And so they made a CD of my recording of my book, and I read it.
Wow. What's the response been like for that?
Oh, it's been interesting. It's my first audio book, so I don't have much experience with how to market it, but I do sell copies of it when I go out and speak.
You're getting good feedback. People are liking the story and enjoying listening to it.
Yeah. Yes, they do. I'm a Toastmaster. I don't know if I shared that, but I've been in Toastmasters International for over 10 years. And so I've learned a lot about public speaking and voice and things like that. So I had some training before I went up there and just started reading.
And don't you also belong to a Christian Women's Speaking Bureau?
Yes, I do.
Okay, what kinds of speaking do you do?
I speak at women's teas, women's events, workshops, things like that. Different church activities. They've all been affiliated with churches, teas, things like that.
That's something you enjoy doing, getting out, meeting the people?
I do. I take my spinning wheel, which has been a lot of fun. My thing that's on my business card is spinner of fibers and weaver of stories. So I take my spinning wheel with me whenever I go out to speak, and people really enjoy watching me spin fiber, and we get to talk, and people like to talk when something is going on, so when there's a distraction. So I get to meet the people. I always arrive early, and I spin.
What sort of fibers do you spin? Are these like wool? Or
wool, yes, or we blend fibers. We blend different fibers, different types of wool. Right now I have some yak and silk that I'm trying to work with.
Yak.
So yak and silk.
It's the first time we've had anybody talk about yak and silk on the show.
Okay.
So let's talk about your works in progress as our time's starting to run down here. I know you've got a couple of ongoing children's books and a novella, and you're working on a devotional, plus another novella. Let's start with your novel, Nowhere to Go But Tomorrow. Can you tell us about that?
Okay. Yes. It's placed, it opens at what was formerly known as the Lapeer State Home. And it's my protagonists are a male and a female. And the lead-in is they shared a promise that if they were ever separated, they would follow the east trains and meet where the sun rises. Fearful of the dangers Kay faced, Seth risked his life to try to find her. The train tracks went directly through the middle of this institution. So there were trains throughout the day and the night that went through. So that's kind of, it was, at one time the state home housed over 5,000, almost 5,000 residents. I don't think they ever went over, but it was almost 5,000 residents. So it was like a city. And there's a lot of stories there, and I was hoping to open dialogue by writing a fiction book, and that some of these stories would get told and shared.
So what kind of stories?
Pardon me?
So what kind of stories? Can you give us an example or two?
Oh, well, there were people that worked there that took residents into their home on a regular basis. Some of them actually adopted residents. They had a farm there. They had an orchard. The people learned different cooking, laundry. They had a bakery. The people learned skills, and they could go out and work in the community if they were capable. So became a part of our community. The state home was a part of our community. And there were generations that worked there. You know, grandfather worked there, daughter worked there, grandchild worked there. There were generations of people that lived in Lapeer area that worked there. So I don't know if you've ever been to the state home in Traverse City, but the state homes all had their different population that they served. And the Lapeer State Home was originally opened for the feeble-minded and the epileptic in the 1890s. So it housed people that had disabilities. It housed people that were abandoned and neglected. During the Depression, a man walked up to the gate with his wife and a couple children and just said, "I can't take care of them anymore." They took the family in, and they spent the rest of their life living in the state home as residents there.
Wow.
There were delinquents that were housed there because at that time there was no place for juvenile delinquents. So there was just a really varied population there.
Now, you had we spoke to you the other night, and you had talked a little bit about this unique baseball team that they had there. Share that story. I found this fascinating.
Well, they had played a lot of baseball. You remember back years ago, baseball was a really big sport, and they did play a lot of baseball there, and they actually would play the local schools. And it was said that the residents there could play a whole baseball game without glove, without ball, without bat, and they would go through the whole game. They would pitch a ball they didn't have, and they would catch a ball they didn't have, and hit a ball they didn't have, and they would play a whole game and entertain themselves without any equipment. So it can be done, I guess.
Yeah, that reminds me of the Cuckoo's Nest, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest scene where Nurse Ratched cuts off the TV, but they watch the ball game anyway.
Yeah,
right.
with Nicholson calling the game.
So you have a novella on trial at the dollar store. What is that?
I do. It's about a young woman. I'll just read the blib. Wearing a jagged facial scar and shadowed by 10 years in prison, Leslie Roche, on parole, faced her second trial in a small-town dollar store where her anger is unraveled as she both learns and teaches the mystery of mercy. So it's about a young woman at the age of 16 gets in with the wrong people, and she ends up spending 10 years in prison. And it's about what happens as she tries to fit back into a society that isn't very eager to accept her.
Now, your two children's books that you've been working on, The Adventures of Tommy and Tucker and The Adventures of Lulu and Lucy, it's very, very fascinating how you're putting those together over time. Would you tell us about that?
Well, Tommy is a wooden doll, and he was made in 1915 from remnants in a wood box, and he was made by my great-great-grandfather for my father. And we all played with Tommy. Every generation has played with Tommy. And I looked at my great-grandson, and I thought it would be really fun to write stories about the adventures of Tommy and Tucker, my great-grandson. So I started putting together for him, and I had a replica of the doll made for him. And then the adventures of Lulu and Lucy are, Lucy is a barred rock chicken, or Lulu is a barred rock chicken, and Lucy's a rag doll. And she's a replica of the rag doll that my grandmother always had in her home for us girls to play with when we visited her. So the stories are about a little girl who always has the chicken under one arm and the doll under the other as she seeks to learn about the wonderful world of childhood. And Jeannie Rotman-Bussell illustrated the book for me. And each year I add a story to these two books for my great-grandchildren on their birthdays.
Living stories that just keep growing.
Keep growing, yeah. Now, we're running up against the end of the show, but we still have time. You're also working on a devotional. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'm a gardener. I'm an avid gardener, and I have a herb garden. So I thought it would be interesting to put together a collection of wisdom. So I call it Gathering Sage, and it's a collection of devotionals sharing wisdom from the women, both old and young, who've influenced my life, comforted me, loved me, taught me, challenged me, believed in me, and helped me become the woman I am today. So it's just a collection of stories about little small episodes of wisdom that's been passed on. And it's called Gathering Sage, meaning gathering advice or wisdom. And it's taken from the concept of an herb garden.
Wow, cool. And you said the cover has an herb basket on it?
Well, that's my vision. But I wanted to have a devotional that I could take out when I went out to events to speak so that people could have, right now I do takeaways that they can take home related to what I spoke about. But it would be nice to have a devotional that I could take out and sell, that they would have something to take home and journal in if they wanted to.
Yeah, I've been reading devotionals for decades now, and you know they sometimes there's something there on that page that you needed to hear that morning. So
absolutely, yeah.
Take that out there with you.
Well, that gets us down to your current work, the one that you're working on right now the most, and that's your novella Indivisible.
Well, that's a work in progress right now, but it's the story of let me see here, where is it? My current work is about identical twins separated at birth and leading completely different lives and discovering each other at the age of 34. It exposes the lie that we are all seduced to believe when we envy another person.
Wow. So how far are you?
I'm about halfway through. I would say I'm about halfway through. I'm probably around 50,000 words right now.
That sounded like on the way to a novel rather than a novella.
Yeah.
But definitely sounds fascinating. I'd be interested in reading that.
Yeah.
Well, they grow up in two completely different elements. But when they meet each other, they end up envying each other without realizing that they each have what they needed. And they've really been blessed. But they have to learn that. I think we all have to learn that, don't we? When we envy someone else. Yeah.
Okay, well, we are just about out of time. So where can our listeners find out more about you on social media?
Okay, well, I have a blog that I post on my website is nellecooper.net.
Specify N-E-L-L-E.
Yes, N-E-L-L-E Cooper.net.
Okay.
And I'm on Gmail. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Okay, terrific.
All right,
and they can contact you because you know where I am.
I just started to say, if anybody has trouble finding you, they can use the contact form in freshinkgroup.com and let us know, and we'll make sure that the message gets to you. Plus, on your members page, under your picture, there's a button that people can click and send you an email.
Send you an email.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if you heard me, Stephen, but I did say thank you for your help in getting Princess Low published.
I did hear that, and I really appreciate the thanks. But you're proud of it, and that's what matters the most, is that it's out there doing some important things, and you've got some more stuff coming up that you're also going to be proud of too. So we're about out of time now. We want to thank Nelle Cooper for being our guest today.
Yep, definitely. Thank you for taking some time out of your evening, Nelle, and joining us.
Oh, thank you for sharing my book. Thank you so much.
So, listeners, make sure you get your copy of Princess Lil. And that's a chapter book. It's available in a print edition. You can get it in an ebook edition like Kindle over on Amazon or Nook over on Barnes & Noble. And there's an audio book read by the author herself. Also, you want to listen to this show again, go to the archives on YouTube. That's the Fresh Ink Group channel on YouTube. And while you're there, make sure you subscribe to our channel. Last I saw, we're up to 106 subscribers, so we're rocking and rolling.
All right. Beem? All right. Also, you can go to find this show in the archives at freshinkgroup.com, beamweeks.com, and stephengs.com. So there's all kinds of places to find this, not just this episode, but every show we've done so far. So go over there and listen. If you missed one, if you missed a dozen, go over there and just knock them out. Listen to them. And like Stephen says, when you're over on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and
the like
hit the
button
thumbs up
too.
And the the thumbs up.
Now, we haven't settled on a guest for next week yet, but we will be here next week, same time, same place, Michigan, Alabama, wherever you are listening. We encourage you to get on Twitter and to call in and help us spread the word. These podcasts, our audience is slowly but surely growing. We're having some good people on here and talking about some good ideas, and we think it's worth everybody tuning in.
Yeah, and we're trying to do, a little mixture here too. So it's not, each week the same, just doing the same interview, but with a different guest. We're trying to mix things up and make it as interesting and fun. So, yeah.
So thanks again, Nelle.
Yeah, thank you, Nelle.
Good evening.
And we will see everybody else here next week. Same time, same channel. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Good night.
You've been a part of Voice of Indie, a production of Fresh Ink Group. Spread the word, support our guests, then find us at freshinkgroup.com and be sure to hashtag Fresh Ink Group.